How's it going, guys? Casey here with the Coyote Works channel. Well, I'm out here on another weekend Jeep Overland adventure. I'm wandering back into a section of country back here that I've never really explored. I've kind of been close to this area before, and man, so far this has proven to be a little bit of a rough trip. These roads are pretty rocky. So right now I'm following this old historic, it's actually a cutoff road. The main Wagon road is off to my north just a bit, and this was a seasonal cutoff. The main Wagon road follows kind of the valley bottom, and this cutoff road, or this alternate route road, stays up on high ground. So I'm kind of looking around for any signs of the old historic activities that happen along here. That's part of the trip. And another part of the trip is that I'm hoping to find some campsites or the potential remnants of some old homesteads near some water holes in here. There are a couple of water holes along here that would have made logical places for the homesteaders, the settlers that were traveling over the roads by wagon to camp at. There's also a lot of interesting geology in this country and some pretty highly sought after rock hounding areas. So there's quite a few agates and limb casts in various areas through here. So we might see if we can find some of those as well. I'm gonna try to find a campsite before it gets too dark. And one of the reasons why is I'm pretty excited about, I'm gonna do one of my one-pot meals in camp tonight, one of my favorites. So I'll show you guys a little variation on my typical one-pot meal that I cook. So we'll have some good camp cooking. Maybe we'll tell some stories around the fire or something. All right, so I just took a quick stop here to look at, I'm using my Gaia GPS app on my phone right now to navigate. I've got a little side canyon we might wander down. This road's actually been pretty gnarly. It's been pretty slow going. I've been going along like just 3 miles an hour. But now I broke up here on top and the road's gotten a little bit better where it's flat up here. So this is good. I'm making a little bit better time. Holy shit, there's wild horses right there. Hang on, hopefully I can show you guys this. All right, I don't have much zoom on my camera, but there's a wild horse right there. And there is a couple more of them right up there. Well, I couldn't help myself. I decided to jump out of the Jeep and see if I could track the herd a little ways. There's actually a lot of controversy about the wild horses still roaming on public lands, especially in areas where their numbers have really grown in recent years. There's even a lot of debate as to where these herds that we see today actually originated from. Some would say that the herds we see today are descendants of the original herds the Spaniards brought with them when they were exploring north up from Mexico and into the western United States. Other people say they're just descendants of the herds from the ranchers and homesteaders in the area, and that a lot of them originated not any earlier than the 1920s or 1930s. Regardless of where they originated from, and regardless of the controversy that surrounds them in some areas, I always enjoy seeing them out there. And like any other wild animal, I always enjoy the challenge of trying to track them for a ways, watching them and observing their behavior. All right, well that was pretty cool. I just spent about 20 minutes or so tracking that little herd of horses. So you see them every once in a while in this country, but you never really know when you are or when you aren't going to see them. I did kill a little bit of extra time, so let's get moving and we'll see if we can get over to the rim and look down into a couple of canyons. All right, we're cruising up on a little water hole up here. So I'm gonna ease nice and slow because there might be some critters out there. I'm gonna get my binoculars out and glass it a little bit. I don't see anything moving out there. Nope, nothing moving. So let's roll up a little bit. Well, at this point, the sun's starting to get kind of low in the sky. I've had a couple of hikes. The wind is just blowing like crazy out there, so the filming's terrible in this kind of wind. But at this point, I'm just kind of looking for a place to camp. It's about 4:20 right now, and I wanted to be like in my campsite around 5 to give me enough time to get a fire going, and I need, probably around an hour and a half or so to cook the dinner that I have tonight. So I'd like to get myself down, maybe tucked back in a little draw, down in a little canyon, something like that, where I can just get out of this wind, because I think it's going to blow off and on all night. Come on, get out of the way. Stake on the hoof. Alright guys, well, this is going to be camp for the night. It's not the best spot I've ever had, but I love the area it's in. I've already seen some obsidian chips around in here, some artifacts, so I know there's history in here. I'm right on this old road, so lots of places for me to walk out and check out in the morning. I'm actually right on a trace of this old wagon road right there, so I'll show you guys that at some point. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a fire pit set up, a fire going, and get my dinner on. I'm going to do that before I set up any of the rest of my camp, because I need my dinner to stew in the pot for a little while. So let's get that going, guys. The good news is I'm right here by a little wash, so I don't have to go far for some good rocks. All right, I got a pretty decent fire reflective wall. Now I'm going to go gather some firewood, and I don't need a ton because it's almost dark, which means it's probably around 8 o'clock. So I just need enough to be able to cook my dinner off of. So the best wood, at least in this case out here, are these dead limbs off of the lower parts of these old growth junipers. Spoiled the last couple of times I've been camping. I've had that mountain mahogany wood, and all I've got around here is juniper, which doesn't burn quite as well, but still burns a lot better than pine. Alright, I'm losing my light fast, so I'm going to get this fire going, and with a little luck, I grabbed a bundle of this small undergrowth off of the dry sagebrush, and with a little luck, I'll just be able to light this. There we go. All right, I got a fire going. So now I'm going to go grab a couple of pieces of kit. The next thing I'm going to do is probably set up my table, prep my one-pot meal so I can get it cooking over the fire. All right, well, I am getting hungry, and I've got what's going to be a pretty spectacular one-pot meal here. So what I've got here is I've got a few fresh ingredients, a few things that I've prepared at home, and my one pot. So I'm going to do kind of a variation on red beans and rice. As you guys know, I like the Zatarain's products, so I've got a Zatarain's red beans and rice mix. I've got a half of a chicken that's already cooked, and then I've got a couple of sticks of andouille sausage. And then I've got some mushrooms, some fresh tomatoes, some fresh cilantro, and some fresh onions. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slice up the sausage, and I'm going to go in the pot with the meat, and I'm just going to add a little bit of water. So, got the Coyote Works Survival Knife 2.0. I'm going to slice up this sausage into some fairly nice, thick, big chunks. For those of you guys that haven't seen it yet, this is the Coyote Works 2.0 Survival Knife. If you're interested in checking them out, they're available from Chad at CK Knife and Tool. That's probably plenty of sausage right there, so I'm not even going to do the other stick of sausage. I'm going to go ahead and pull the chicken meat off of the bone. Throw the bones and the tendons out there for my Coyote brothers to have a little snack tonight. Hopefully they'll come in and visit with us. I don't have any bears or anything out here in this country. Out here about all I have is mountain lions and coyotes, maybe an occasional wolf or something. So I'm not too worried about having the scent of meat and cooking and stuff around my camp. But if I was in an area where there's bears, which I am sometimes, I would not be tossing this meat out like that. Alright, so I'm going to add a little water to the pot. I'm going to go on in with the meat. And this I'm going to put on the fire and let it start cooking. And that's going to turn that into a nice, flavorful broth there. Alright, so what I've done here is I've pulled some coals over. Kind of set up my grill right here. Real quick, show you guys my wilderness carry. So I like carrying everything right here, right around the front. I've got my Coyote Works Survival Knife 2.0, easy to get to, really, with either hand. I've got my Glock 19X, extra magazine for it, and it's all nice and handy right there. Alright, so we're boiling here. So I'm going to add just a couple ingredients. So a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of garlic powder, and a little bit of pink Himalayan sea salt. Now, got to add some butter. About a tablespoon of butter in there. Give that a little stir. And now we're going to add the red beans and rice mix. Oh yeah, that is going to be amazing. God, I can already smell that. Flavor is incredible. Okay, so I'm going to set this back on the stove. And now this is going to simmer on there. I'm going to let it go for about 40 minutes or so. While that's going, now I can go set up the rest of my camp. Alright, we're going to throw the tent up. And the good news is that is extremely easy. Those 4 buckles. And then it's literally just a matter pushing it up. Man, I am really loving this new Odyssey series hard shell, and this thing is literally like a minute, I don't know, maybe a minute and a half or something to set up. Right now I don't have any bedding up there because this is that small prototype tent. And I'm going to take it back to Free Spirit and swap it out for a 55. This one's a 49, which is just a little bit too small for me. So I haven't been putting all my stuff up there, but when I get the 55, I want to experiment around with if I can put a lightweight sleeping bag up there. It's pretty thin, so I don't know if much bedding will fit in it, but man, it sure is easy and awesome to set up. All right, this has been cooking for about 30 minutes. Oh yeah, the rice is getting nice and tender. Alright, so now we're going to add the last fresh ingredients. We're going to throw in the fresh tomatoes. 3 of those guys. The rest of the cilantro. And then we'll just let this cook for about 10 more minutes or so. Everything else is good. We just want to heat these tomatoes all the way through, but we don't want them to break down too much. Alright, I've got about, probably just about 5 more minutes or so on my 1-pot meal over there, and then I can have some dinner. And so, for the first time in the last couple hours, I actually get a chance to just relax a little bit. My options for a refreshing beverage were a little bit limited, so I'm doing a peach mango Snapple. Better take a feet by the fire picture for the gram. Yeah, this is one of those areas, and this is pretty common for me, but there is not a stitch of cell phone reception out here, and there hasn't been for miles. Probably for the last hour and a half of driving I was doing, I didn't have any reception. I didn't even get a little bar of extended emergency service anywhere. So I am deep in the high desert out here, and in a place where there's just no comms with anyone. Alright guys, this is ready. Look at this. This is going to be fantastic, guys. Nice big chunks of tomato, sausage, lots of chicken. Wow, that is amazing. I really enjoy these one-pot meals, and you can put a little bit of effort and a little bit of time into them, and you can kind of make them as simple or as complicated and fancy as you like. This one is just a nice kind of balance in between. Not a whole lot of effort out here. I did some slicing and things in my fresh vegetables, but for the most part I prepped everything at home, so I didn't have a lot of work, and it was just a matter of kind of putting things, staging things and putting things in the pot in the right order. But now I've got a fantastic meal. The only problem is I made enough for about 4 people, so wow, that is really good. Well, I have to say that was a pretty fantastic day, but now I'm snugged up inside this Odyssey series rooftop tent. I just turned my heater on a little bit. It's not super cold out there, but man, it sure is nice to just heat it up here. It feels about like my living room. And this tent, the 49 series, I would prefer a little more space, but the advantage of it being smaller is it retains quite a bit more heat in here. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today. I sure did. Now I'm in some really neat country, and I'm really excited to get to do some hiking around and exploring around this area tomorrow morning. So I'm going to get some sleep, and that's all for this day. Coyote Works out. I'll see you guys in the morning for coffee. Good morning, guys. I'm just putting some instant coffee in a water bottle. I'm going to do 2 packets because each of these packets, the directions say to go with 8 ounces. And I have an 8-ounce water bottle, so I like to double my pleasure. Give it a good shake. Always kind of nice to sit up in the tent in the morning, the heater going, get my first caffeine in me. It's about 5:15 right now, so I'm just going to polish off my coffee in the comfort of my heated rooftop tent. Then I'll get dressed, go out there, build a fire. I'll hit you guys back up when I get a fire going outside. Wow, well, I can tell you it's going to be an absolutely beautiful day. There's not a cloud in the sky, but for right now, it's freaking cold, so I'm gonna get a fire going. Oh, I got a nice fire going, and that warmth feels good, taking the chill off of this cold morning. A decent amount of frost out, quite a bit of frost on the tent actually. So I'm just kind of soaking up some heat, and next I'll start putting together some breakfast. But I always enjoy just sitting and listening to the woods come alive in the mornings. Just a little bit ago I heard a hawk up there on his morning hunt. I've always just enjoyed listening to the woods and all the wildlife kind of come alive in the mornings. Alright, it is chilly out here, but I'm going to whip up some breakfast really quick. I'm just going to do a super simple breakfast. So I'm just going to do some grits, and then I've got some Western Fried Meats pork sausage, breakfast sausage. So I'm just basically going to do some sausage and some grits. So it'll be really easy. Boil some water, get it going in my grits, and then once I have the water boiled and in my grits, then I'll start browning up the sausage. Alright, well, I'm waiting for the water to boil. I'm going to do 2 things. One is I'm going to prep my cup of coffee. So thanks to my buddy Mike, actually Mike and Buddy, who are off on the road now. I've got these Nescafe 3-in-1 coffees. He gave me a whole bag of them. And these things are a real treat. I don't use them all the time, but they're a really nice treat because they have a nice creamer and even a little bit of sweetener mixed up with them. So I'll have a coffee as soon as my water boils. And now let's prep our grits. So how I like my grits is with some sweetener and some butter in them. Just nice and simple. So I'm just going to go into my cup/bowl. I'm going to go in with 2 packets of grits so I can have a good amount of them. So once I have my grits in, I'm going to go in with a little honey. Ooh, this honey's cold. And then outside of the honey, I'm going to go in with about a tablespoon of butter. Alright, now that's ready. As soon as my water boils, I'll be good to go there. So this is perfect. A breakfast like this, the grits and sausage and a nice cup of coffee here going with it. But the grits do have a little bit of protein in them, but the sausage gives me that dose of protein that I need to fuel myself well on into the day. Sausage and grits is about as simple of a breakfast as you're going to get. A meal like this will stick to your ribs for a couple hours. So one thing I get a lot of questions about is why I do my fire pits the way I do. And oftentimes what people ask about is why I do this shallow U or half moon as opposed to a ring of rocks around the fire. If I don't need warmth from my fire and my biggest priority is just cooking and then establishing a perimeter around my fire so that it can't spread, I'll do a ring of rocks. If I want warmth from my fire also, then I'm going to do this shallow U or half circle. When you do a ring of rocks around the fire, what happens is that ring of rocks in essence ends up reflecting, for lack of a better word, your heat upwards. And so like when you put your feet by the fire and things like that, the heat is radiating more upwards, where when you do a half circle or a half moon like this, you get a little bit of a reflective type effect where you get a little bit more heat back behind this wall of rocks. Also, by building a taller backdrop or wall of rocks on one side, that tends to create kind of a convection effect that draws the smoke up and makes it a little bit more predictable. So the smoke will draw up along the back of this reflective wall right here. And generally speaking, that'll help carry it higher, so it's not necessarily like right in your face all the time. So shallow U or half circle is for warmth and drawing the smoke up out of the way. A ring is for a cooking fire, a fire where you don't need warmth and your biggest concern is just cooking and establishing a perimeter so the fire won't spread. All right, I'm going to get geared up and go on a little walk because I want to try to follow this wagon road up here a ways. I followed it down this way, kind of downslope, and I want to follow it up. So I'm just putting on some basic gear. So any of you guys that have been watching my channel for a while know that when I walk away from my Jeep, I'm going to have some basic gear on me. So my Hill People Gear chest pack is got some basics in it, everything from food, fire starting stuff. I'm also going to throw in my pistol belt. So this is a perfect example of why I like a belt setup that's set up to go over the clothes and not to attach necessarily to an inner duty belt for out in the field. So it's pretty cold out here this morning, so I'm wearing a little bit longer of kind of a storm shell, and I want to be able to buckle my belt right on top of it, on the outside of it. And that's where these belts, like this one from Coyote Tactical, really shine. It's nice and grippy, it won't move around, it'll stay stuck to my clothes, and regardless of what I'm wearing for layers, I can put it right on the outside of it. All right. Okay, I think we are good to go. I'll leave that pair of gloves here because I've got another pair attached to my belt. Let's go see what we can find. I don't know if the camera's picking this up, but I'm on this old game trail, and all along this game trail, well, first I was picking up pieces of limb cast and just kind of thinking about it from more of a rock hounding perspective. But then as I started noticing some of these pieces have actually been worked by the hand of man. So this was actually a very active native activity, and what's cool about it is all the different types of stone that they worked. And alright guys, so this is oftentimes how this works. So I'm getting into more and more of this agate and limb casts literally scattered all over the ground here. But I'm also seeing flakes of obsidian in here, which isn't natural to this area. So every once in a while people ask me why I carry a dump pouch on my wilderness carry rig. It's for this exact reason, so I can gather and dump. Alright, well, I made a big loop up high along the ridgeline, followed the trace of this old road. I kept losing it, kept coming back, and now I'm on it where it crosses this little wash. And this is the wash that I'm camped on, and I'm going to be about 1.5 miles or 2 miles or so up there. So, as much as I want to keep following this road, there's also some other things I want to see on this trip. So, I think I'm going to follow this wash back up to camp, see some different country, and we'll pack camp up and we'll jump in the rig. So you guys probably won't be able to discern it on the camera, but that wagon road is coming down the hill from behind me, and it shoots down this draw this way. But what's interesting about it is now it's also a game trail, and it very easily could have also been a trail for the Native Americans to travel through this country. Oftentimes there's concentrations of activity around these old trails. There's a lot of history to be found, but a lot of it's pretty old. You know, at this point, probably any of the history along this trail is at least 120, 100, and probably even more like 130 years old. This is just beautiful country in here. This is what I was so excited about, this spot. So I'm definitely going to have to come back here and camp more. Between the rock hounding, the wagon road, the Native American history, there's just a lot to explore and discover in here. Right now, I'm on another game trail, and again, these game trails are great places to look for signs or artifacts or any kind of pieces of old history. Sometimes these trails were even used as routes to get from place to place for just men on horseback. So I'm looking for any old blazes on trees or any sign that there was human activity in here other than the natives that were hunting. Alright, so I've been seeing some horse droppings in here, and I'm probably 20 miles from where I saw those wild horses, but there are a few in here too. And right here is an interesting spot. Here's a spot where a horse rolled in the dust right here, used his paws to loosen up the dust a little bit, rolled, maybe even laid down there in the sun because there's a depression that's kind of packed out there, and then got back up. And I can see right where I'm standing is where his hoof prints dug in deep when he got back up from laying on the ground and rolling. Alright guys, I don't want to get too close, but hopefully the camera can see there's 2 badger holes right there. So I was walking from behind the camera and I saw the badger through the trees, and I got probably about 7 yards or so from him, and then he scurried down in his hole. But when I walked up to the hole to check the tracks, I got about 2 yards from the hole and he started growling at me. So I don't know if he's going to come back out or not, and I kind of hope he doesn't because they're pretty territorial and they're pretty tough little animals. But that was pretty cool. You don't hardly ever see a badger out here, and especially not in broad daylight like this. Whew. Well, I'm here to tell you, it warmed right up. But just now, the wind's starting to pick back up, so I don't think it's going to stay too warm for long. So I'm going to get camp all buttoned up. That shouldn't take me too long, about 20 minutes or so. Then we're going to head up the trail. Alright, well, before I get too serious about packing up, I had to take a little break, drink some water, and just kind of relax and enjoy it. It's just kind of past the morning now. I think it's about 10:30 or so, and so things have quieted down a little bit. It felt like it was getting pretty warm when I was walking around out there, but sitting still in the breeze, it's definitely still chilly. It's probably, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 50, somewhere in that ballpark. This tent is so easy to put up and take down. It's just incredible. Like, it's literally just a minute and a half. So, Odyssey Series hard shell from Free Spirit Recreation, gofsr.com. I'm really liking this tent. Yeah, camp breakdown is all pretty easy. There's a few things I have to disassemble. My ready light, my table, and my chair. But everything else is pretty much just a matter of setting it back inside the Jeep. So I've got my front runner wolf packs right here. My cooler I got out this time. My chair, my front runner chair. Actually, that chair, front runner wolf packs, and that table, you can all get at Lolo Overland. So a lot of times what I think about when I'm packing gear or storing gear in my rigs, I think about what kinds of things are easy for me to replicate out in the woods versus what kinds of things are much easier for me to just buy and bring with me. So things like chairs and tables are really difficult to replicate out in the woods. They're very labor intensive to replicate them. Now, something like fire pit, easy to do. Maybe takes me 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to throw together a nice reflective wall or half round fire pit. So I don't carry a fire pit with me. That's something I can build. All right, camp is packed up and I am ready to hit the trail. So the next place we're going is a little mark on my map layer that just shows a prospect. So it just has the little X and it says prospect. So I don't know what they were prospecting for there, but I'm going to climb up out of this little draw and it should be up on top just off to my south a little bit. Well, it looks like this prospect is really old, and really all it is a place where they dug out a bunch of soil from the hillside here. So I'm guessing they were looking for agate or opals or something like that. I don't know. I'll have to do some research on the area and see what it might have been. But and run back to the rig. Pulled 2 ticks off of me so far. I hear some frogs. So I must have a water hole around here somewhere. But as far as the ticks go, yeah, they're usually, in this country, they're usually only bad for a month, maybe a little more than a month in the early spring. And outside of that, you know, the winter it's too cold for them, and I don't know what happens to them in the summer. Ah, look at this. This is why I heard the frogs. A nice little pond here. This might be actually a nice place to camp right here by this little water hole, at least a little bit later. I bet in another month or two, this is probably about the only water around here. So this would be where all of the game would come into. All right, guys. So, right back there behind me a little ways, I found a tree that had a pretty good sized limb cut off. And it was clearly cut off with an axe a long time ago. And then I kicked an old tin can, and now I've come up here a little ways further, and I see something really interesting. I don't know what it is, but we're gonna go check it out here. It's clearly man-made. All right, so I don't know what it is. It looks like a short little section of fence, but it doesn't connect to anything. Guys, I have no freaking clue what that is doing here. I don't even know what it is, but I don't see any other signs. And I'm probably 200 yards from where I saw that limb cut off that tree. All right, so the mystery deepens a little bit. There's a short, round pole or stick about 18 inches long, sharpened on one end, nailed to the tree branch. And then there's that short little section of fence. So now I'm wondering, is it some kind of a makeshift primitive trap or something? I ended up burning a good part of the day on that last hike, and as I got back to the Jeep, it was time to hit the trail and start heading back toward civilization. There's very few things in life I enjoy more than exploring a new piece of country. For me, seeing what's around that next corner, what's over that next little mountain range, or what's across that valley is what drives me in life. Seeing new places and experiencing new things. It's actually kind of amazing to think about the fact that after all the trips I've made, literally hundreds over the course of my life into the central and eastern Oregon backcountry, that there are still places like this that I can find, pockets of land hundreds of square miles here and there that I have yet to explore. It's really exciting, and it gives me something to look forward to, and I love having the knowledge that I can keep exploring our state for the rest of my life, and I'll never see it all before the day I die. This trip ended up being a pretty awesome blend of seeing new country, finding some pieces of lost history, seeing some interesting wildlife, the wild horses, and having some just nice time around camp. I hope you guys enjoyed coming along with me as much as I enjoyed having you along. I look forward to your comments, your questions, and above all, I appreciate all your support. And I'll look forward to seeing y'all on the next one. Coyote Works, out.